All right, everybody, good morning. This is Dave Press with Sterling Systems, along with Chad Studer, who will be doing the presentation this morning. We want to just thank everybody for coming out this morning, and again, if just real quick, at the end of this presentation, we'll be sending out an evaluation. If everybody could please take a second and just fill those out if you haven't done so already. Those just help us determine what we want to do for next time and make sure that these are valuable to you and that the correct information that we're showing is what you guys want to see. So that helps us out a lot with that. So again, thank you for coming. Just real quick, I want to talk a little bit about Sterling Systems, just a slide or two for those new to working with us. Sterling Systems obviously provides Autodesk software, products like Civil 3D that we'll be showing this morning, as well as products like Revit and Navisworks. We do that implementation for all the Autodesk products. Again, so we can help you with your family creation if it's Revit, or your styles if it's Civil 3D, and help that in really different forms, whether that's help you create them, show you how to create them for you, things like helping you determine how to go about it for both those products, again, Revit and Civil 3D. Consulting services, working with all the different products that are out there currently, even with things like MicroStation, how to work with Civil 3D and file sharing. Again, products like Navisworks, working maybe possibly with point clouds if you have a service provider that does have scanning capabilities, if you're possibly interested in getting into scanning, we can help you out with that. Training solutions, we can do that either in our classrooms here at your site for custom training, or basically WebEx, just about any form of training on the AutoCAD, Leica, we offer that. Support solutions, our support actually is pretty easy. If you buy products from us, whether that's your subscription renewal, possibly a new product, upgrades, or new seats, we do offer 1 year of gold support service with that. That's included with your purchase, as well as the Leica HDS scanning. So for those of you that are not familiar with Leica HDS scanners, basically a high-definition scanning, you're seeing quite a bit of these pop up around the Arizona area, allowing you to incorporate anywhere from 50,000 to 500,000 points a second. That point cloud can then be registered and brought over to products like Civil 3D. And coming soon, actually, a direct import into Revit that we'll talk about at a later date. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Chad Studer again, talk about not only Civil 3D, but we're going to get into our training today, which I believe are tips and tricks. This is our fourth installment of our Civil 3D series. Again, we are planning on doing some of these again shortly. I would say within a month or so we'll get these put together. We'll be sure to get invitations out to everybody. And again, thank you for your time. With that, I'll turn it over to Chad.
Thanks, Dave. Just real quick, if anybody's having any troubles hearing us, please put that in the chat window immediately. And if you're having any troubles connecting, please call the office. We'll make sure we get you connected as well, or some assistance to help you log in. So we're going to get started. It's Civil 3D 2012. This is the fourth part, so I'm not going to go through everything in detail, but basically it's the 9th version of Civil 3D. 2012 actually came out with infrastructure design suites, which actually bundles more software along with Civil 3D to help every customer or company out there, I guess, do more variety of work. You don't have to go out and buy a separate seat of Navisworks, separate seat of Max to do visualization. Infrastructure, one of the products we just came out with is for conceptual design as well, as it goes along with that infrastructure design suite. So for more information on that, let us know as well. But there's a ton of software inside there, and they basically bundle it for one low cost, which is a big advantage to everybody that wants to start learning the new software. And believe it or not, Civil 3D, if history repeats itself, like it always does in the past, then of course this April or right in there would be the 2013 version of Civil 3D. So it'd actually be the 10th version of Civil 3D. So it's been out a long time. Anybody still has it sitting on the shelf, there's really no excuse now but to start using it. It only improves over and over again every single year. And there's new tips and software coming out, third-party apps, Autodesk Labs, subscription. There's always something new being added to the product. All right, so the agenda for today, we're going to talk about templates, styles constantly as we go through the entire product. A little bit on survey. I didn't focus on that. I didn't know how many surveyors we have out there. On the survey side, we'll talk about a couple of things, but it's going to be more related to points. We're going to talk a little bit about volumes in the beginning. We're going to jump into grading, so kind of talk about multiple surfaces there. Feature lines. So if you're, one of the questions I think in part 2 was how would you grade a site? So if anybody's interested in that, make sure you stick around for that section. I'm going to give you the biggest tip there is to any type of site design, at least to get you started, and that is using feature lines, of course. We're going to talk about corridors. There's going to be all sorts of little things mentioned to get everybody on the right direction to work with corridors, managing large data sets, along with just little things that maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, but we're going to talk about a lot of different things in there. And one is just be able to match regions, so one region to the next region to the next. We're going to talk about cross-sections in there. We're going to talk about volumes. We're going to talk about how do you locate two roadways. What is the intersection? So if I have a main road and a crossing road, how do I label that point and get it marked in my profile view? Then we're talking about structure labels in the pipe networks as well. And I know there's been a big hurdle in that ever since Civil 3D came out, so I'm going to show you how to resolve that. So today's agenda really, I was going to come out with the top 10 tips that I have, but the problem is most of those are really for users, advanced users. And what I want to do is kind of show some of the easier things in the beginning and kind of make it intermediate for everybody. So if you're a new user, it shows you the direction you want to go. If you're an advanced user, I'm sure there's going to be some of them that you haven't seen before. But everybody should be able to enjoy the entire workflow and definitely learn how to do and understand all of this by the time we're done. And keep in mind, for the advanced users, I have a ton of other ones. If you're interested, please let me know as well. Also, as we go through here, this is a section. If you guys have any questions about Civil 3D, how do you do this, or how do you do that, or I was on this, I'm hoping to end a little bit early. I always talk way too much, but if possible, I'm going to try and say 15 minutes. And you want to throw anything out there, if I can find a drawing that has a style that can display it, I'll jump right into it and show you as we go. So feel free as we go through here, what you'd like to see, I'll try and make room for it or try and make it part of the presentation on the fly. And with that said, I'll throw out a couple questions at the end, so make sure you take some notes or listen real well, and we'll give away a couple Starbucks gift cards again. All right, so the first one that we're going to talk about was templates. I'm not going to elaborate on this a whole lot as we get started here. Templates I covered in part 2. So what you'll notice in each one of these, I guess the presentations we go through here, we're going to talk about the topic. I'm going to list some of the things that I'm typically going to show. And then at the bottom, I'm going to put what I call a slew around, a solution for problems that come up in the software that maybe weren't made easy by either the manufacturer or it just isn't laid out real easy for you. So you kind of do a little dig in or use a mixture of tools to come up with it. So it's a solution or a workaround to what we're trying to get out of the software. And a lot of these at the bottom are information that you can find on my blog. So if you see something like, oh, I wish you would have covered that, well, it takes a little bit more, and I don't want to bore everybody with maybe something that it took a few steps. And maybe more for the advanced users. You can take a look at that down at the bottom, and you'll see the information. If you need more information on that, let me know, but I can definitely shoot you a link from my blog for that information. All right, so to get started, all the brand new users, or if you're in the middle of creating styles with Civil 3D, the biggest tip that I kind of provide in that part 2, if you go back and watch it, start with the National CAD Standard template. If you don't like those layers, you can simply delete all the layers out of there. It separates all of the I guess the National CAD Standard layers from the styles, and then you can use the Import Styles command to bring in other styles from multiple drawings, put your own layers in a drag and drop, use the invisible block button to bring in your blocks and to import your styles. Always make sure that template's clean using the Audit command. You can also do Dash Purge, which comes up with the command line and allows you to remove all the reg apps. So as you build templates, you're going to have multiple points, point numbers, surfaces, profiles, alignments, a lot of information in that template you're going to test. Well, all that stays in that drawing, kind of like phantom objects. So this allows you to clean that template up to get rid of those phantom objects so you don't have any problems in the future. So make sure you do the Dash Purge reg apps on that. On the survey side, survey/points, I guess, because I want to jump into line coding and show double coding and OC, so you can take shots on a curve. If you're doing curve islands, it only takes you one shot to connect those curves to your line work. But, you know, each one of these that I'm talking about, I could easily spend 90 minutes on, easily a day on survey, of course. So keep in mind, I'm just trying to pick some of the things that show very well and that you can pick up on and that maybe you haven't came across yet. So a couple of small ones here. First one is COGO, survey commands under AutoCAD features. We're going to talk about points, description keys and how they can automatically update, point groups, drawing scale to provide point sizing, kind of a workaround for all the surveyors out there. And the slew around for this one is create a point table to include station and offset. There is third-party software out there that does that. And again, that is on my blog if anybody wants that to work. It's kind of a common question that I get from everybody. So yes, you can do it, but there are a little different workflows to be able to provide that. So the first one is just the survey commands, and then we're going to talk about points. Survey commands are very easy that I want to point out, and they're not necessarily survey commands, but COGO functionality. You used to have a COGO pull down or a line curve pull down. Everything now is just under the regular AutoCAD draw command, so they're kind of hidden. But if you look right here, there's your normal line command. Then you have all sorts of other options that you might be familiar with in the past. Create line by point number and range, by point object, create line by point name. You get the idea, and you can kind of go through these later on as you look for these. But one I want to point out is very common for surveyors is create line by bearing. Also notice as I kind of hover over this, it shows you information about it, and it says apostrophe DD. So these can also be keyed in at the command line if you don't want to use the pull-down menus. And they're also known as transparent commands. There's a toolbar also in Civil 3D which allows you to kind of locate a lot of hidden commands. This is the transparent toolbar that also has a lot of this information. Another one that you might use or be able to utilize a lot is station offset. So if you're drawing and you want to draw something right next to your alignment, you can just type in the station offset and it displays that. Working with profile design, you want to draw by station and elevations. Or if you go down a little bit farther, there's station elevations, grade elevations, and grade length. Another key one, if you ever lose this toolbar, you just have to type it into command line. Well, it's very simple now. If you know where to look, you simply go to, I think I actually forgot where it is. I was thinking you go to Manage, but if you go to View, here's Toolbars, and you can simply go back and turn this toolbar on if you don't know where it is or you can't find it in the current version you're using there. So we'll place that back in there, and let's go ahead and get started now. The key is, any of the transparent commands, you have to start a command first. So I'm going to start the line command or maybe the polyline command, and I just typed it into command line. So now as I go to draw a line, I can go up here, or I could have started the line command. But simply say create line by bearing, and whenever you pick your first point, it comes up with the quadrants automatically. Just click in the quadrant where you want to draw. You can type in the bearing, depending on your settings, how you would type the information as well. As I place that, then I can type a distance. I'm going to put 400 in there, and then I just continue to draw the information as I go in a simple line by direction. At any time I can escape out and continue to draw with the regular line command. Also, the same thing works for your curves or your arcs. All the COGO functionality is located right there. The second tip that we wanted to provide or talk about here is when you bring in all the points, it utilizes description keys. Hopefully everybody's familiar with description keys. Under settings, I can locate the description key file that I'm currently using. As I go to display the information, let me close a couple of these other ones here. Looks like I buried it. There we go. It has a list of information. I'm going to go down here and you'll see TRD, deciduous. It shows you the point label style, $sign, what layer is going to go on, scale parameter, all sorts of information. So every point you bring in through survey, whatever they coded in the field is processed through the description key to display the points the way that we wish to see them in our drawing. But what I want to point out, for some reason, if they keyed it in wrong, or they put in a miscellaneous point, and later on we talked to them and we found out it was supposed to be something that was coded different. Maybe they made a note of that. Well, you can select any point in the drawing at any time. If you want to modify or change that point, you can easily do that using your Properties window. Simply type in what the raw description was supposed to be. Now, keep in mind, if you bring it in through the survey database, these points would be locked, and only the surveyors would be able to edit this. I brought these in through Kogo, a simple ASCII file, so that's why I have the ability to change these points. I could simply type in TRD, so this would be tree deciduous. The size of the tree, this only works because I set up my description key, and I could say 10-inch diameter, let's say maple tree. Once I do this, I just updated that point. And now, if I change multiple points, I can simply right-click. This would work for all your line work as well. But if I do apply description keys, it'll automatically take every single point in the drawing, reread that description key file, and have it update. And you can see it automatically sized the tree accordingly, made it deciduous, put the correct label in there, and the size of the tree and the type of tree is displayed. Again, because the description key file was set up. And that goes for all the different point types in here. Another small thing, but big advantage for Civil 3D is when you're working with the point groups, the order controls the display of how the points are going to look. So as the points fall into here, you create point groups to display and organize all of your data. In this case, you can see the points fall to trees, the stream are the blue points, the control or the survey, the white control points for survey, topo points. I have ground shots in here. Topo is what I built the surface from. I have one called all points. Everybody has all points. As soon as you create a point or import a point, it automatically develops that point group, which does control or has every single point in it. I have one called markers only and no display. Another one that I would suggest would be one just for utilities. You create a point group to add the water, the storm, the sanitary, anything, power poles, anything that is utility related. So you can turn those on or off and separate those from the rest of the points at any time. So what I did is simply create a point group, and hopefully everybody's familiar with this, but I made a point group called no display. I go in, I set a point style to none, so no point style, no label style. Then there's an order hierarchy for points. So as points come in, they read the description key first, then they read the point group. Well, our goal is we want now the point group to manage the display of the points, so you have to do an override. So under the override tab, you can go in here and check style and point label style, and it would override the existing description key file. So what does that mean? Well, now when I go back, this will control it instead of the description key file. So by changing the point group order, so I'm going to change this to properties. I'm going to go down here and take no display. I'm going to move this to the top. So this is a hierarchy. As all the points fall into the drawing now, the no display is set to incorporate all points. So every single point will go in here. Whichever point group finds the point first, kind of like a funnel, it will automatically take on those properties. So now it's going to automatically take every single point and display nothing. At any time I can change this now. If I want to see just my tree display, I move that above the no display. And now just the trees would show up because those are the points that fell in the hierarchy here first, then fell to no display. Another unique way to show this is to simply take and create one called markers only, move this to the top, and instead of turning all of your layers on and off, I have all the display or utilities, manholes, catch basins, power pole signs, everything displayed without all the labels. What's unique about markers only is the same thing as no display. The only difference is when you go to the overrides tab, I did not override the point style, I overrode the label style only. So keep that in mind. That's one way to use point groups. Unfortunately, they do not work through multiple drawings in other words, with X references. So there are ways that you could share the points if you use Vault to utilize that. but at this time with X references, you would not see those capabilities. This would only work in the main survey base map. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to no display. So there's two very quick tool tips about points. And let's go back just to kind of give everybody a reminder of what we're talking about. So survey commands we talked about under lines and COGO, automatic description key files, point group hierarchy, and the last one there was drawing scale for the points. This one's super easy to display. I will take all points and we'll move this one to the top. That's every single point, meaning they're all going to show up. And one of the big things I get from people that are utilizing this for survey functionality is they get too many points in here and they can't see from one point to the next. Simply go down here and change your drawing scale. All the points automatically size, and now you can zoom in, connect your break lines, pan and zoom, turn the points off to no display that you don't need, showing in that drawing, rotate those. Keep in mind the symbols do rotate separately from the labels if we want to. We're going to set this back real quick. And you see they all update. And that concludes a very simple solution for some of the surveyors, for the topo, for anybody that works a lot with points in the main drawing. So let's get to a little bit, I guess, intermediate. The more we go, kind of the more useful these are going to be, and we're going to kind of progress our way from surfaces to site design to roadway design. So a couple of really unique things that you can do here that you might not have been aware of. The first one is surface editing. Then we're going to do just one for fun. We're going to add some surface materials. We're going to talk about merging surfaces. Real quick, I'm going to create a corridor surface just to kind of give you a quick overview of all that as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the surface editing. This is a very simple one as well. I'm going to get rid of this drawing just so it doesn't get in our way again. And I have a lot to display, so I had to use multiple drawings to be able to show all of this just to make it more clear for everybody. So the first one is surface editing, and everybody knows, hopefully you're familiar with, you could go in here, you just pick a surface, you go to edit surface, and we could do delete line, and we could pick whatever 10 lines that we don't want to use. On a massive site, that's going to take quite a bit of time, and this way, I won't say isn't useful, they're both useful, so you just have to use them in combination with each other. But I wanted to point out a unique way to clean this up. One is delete 10 lines. The second, everybody's probably familiar with, was a boundary. You draw a boundary around the area, and then you can say outside boundary. On your surface, boundary, you add outside boundary, and it removes everything as well. Well, again, large surfaces, it can take a long time to go around the entire site to make that boundary. So another very simple, useful tip is when you build the surface, so I simply right-click on the surface. Under definitions, there's a build option in here. You can tell it points less than, greater than. They're kind of like little hidden features, basically. Inside here, we can also say use maximum triangle length. And I'm going to set this to yes, and then I'm going to set that maximum length. Be careful if there's any topo in the center of the surface that the survey crew did not choose. Maybe they missed an area of 100 feet or 150 feet. It would get rid of that 10 area inside the surface. So you have to be careful with the setting. I would say more of 150 or 200 on most sites, but keep a real close eye on this as you use this. It's a very powerful tool. And watch when I go ahead and click OK. What this is going to do is no 10 line can be longer than 75 feet. So if you notice, these are the 10 lines that you want to get rid of. So you look at your site, and you can see these are probably every 12 feet, maybe 25 feet. So anything over 75 feet is going to automatically get rid of it. So as I click OK, it's going to say, would you mind, do you want to rebuild the surface? I'm going to go ahead and rebuild it, and you can see it got rid of every 10 line over 75 feet. Now, is it perfect my boundary? No, but now I can clean it up myself, or maybe I needed to keep this information because it's valid. Or I simply lower that setting, and it will clean the rest of this up. So again, another very simple one to utilize that's under your surface properties build, use maximum triangle length. So we'll go ahead and close that one as well. This just kind of sums up what we were talking about there, the ability to clean up the boundary of a surface with another tool. So let's go back, surface material. This is kind of a fun one. So we're going to switch back to that. Then we're going to talk about pasting a surface. So we'll open up a new drawing to kind of go ahead and incorporate this. Keeps you guys awake, gives you a variety of different drawings to look at as well. This is a little bit larger surface than the other one, and what I want to point out is if you select a surface, you can always go to our surface properties, information tab. You have the ability to go in here and change the render material on how that surface is displayed. Currently, notice it says bilayer. So if I select this, go to Object Viewer, and we look at it in 3D, it just shows the tin surface. We have visual styles that we can change how the surface is displayed. If I change it to conceptual, realistic, shades of gray, wireframe, so there's all sorts of different ways to show this. So I'm going to leave this to realistic for a second. I'm going to close out of here, go back to the surface properties, and I wanted to point out that you can simply assign a render material in this pull-down. So I'm going to go in and just tell it here that I want to use grass thick. By doing this, it's actually going to add grass to the entire site. And now when I go to the Object Viewer and we look at it in 3D, you can actually see real grass material in there. Now, a lot of people don't utilize this. One thing to point out, make sure I'm under realistic. So that's the other tip here. Because look at the tin lines, and it just doesn't look clean. So what is this going to do? I can't print it. It doesn't give me enough value here. So the tip to conclude this one is you actually have to locate your visual styles. So under View, we can go down to the list of visual styles and go to the Visual Style Manager. You can create your own, or just look in this list for the one called Realistic. So as I pick on this one, you kind of see the name there. It also shows you in the corner. And remember those lines were gray that were showing. So edge setting, change the ISO lines to none. And now you can see the gray lines are not going to show up. I also believe if you change that to the X-ray one, it would work as well. So let's take a quick look now, because this is going to be the default here in the Object Viewer. And you can see that this looks a lot better and actually appears now as a grass material. So again, that is just the beginning to display the information. Let's try one more just for fun. I know we have a lot to cover, but this does get pretty neat if you start creating water, sand, and you really know about materials. I'm just going to draw a polyline. I should go right to the boundary here, but again, we're just having fun. We'll pretend we're on the golf course, and we'll locate where Dave Press's golf ball always goes, and that's the sand trap. So under Prospector, we'll go to the surface. When I move the cursor over there, it shows you tooltips, so this is my finished ground. So under the surface that you want to add more materials to, you simply create a mask. And for this mask, it's going to ask you to select a polyline typically. I'm going to select that closed polyline. I'm going to tell it sand trap. I'm going to make this mask for a render only. So it would show up all the time, kind of like a hide boundary. In this case, I only want it when I go to render the information. And then I have to have a material associated with this. You can make materials, type in materials, find your material library, and create your own. I'm going to add a sand material. And what that did is just overlaid a sand material just to where that polyline is. So now if I select the surface and we go to the Object Viewer, we flip this up in 3D, Now it's going to automatically add the grass. And it looks like I got to work on my sand material a little bit there. But you get the idea that that mask allowed me to change that. You can add, I'm trying to think of the name real quick here, but you add mapping coordinates, and then it makes it look like the grass. So I just saw that on the last minute and thought we'd add some sand. But it would look just like the grass. Water, pavement, concrete, and that's how you do that to corridor design as well. It's simply all built in there and uses real-world materials like that. All right, so that was fun, pretty easy too. Everybody gives somebody something to do and kind of show off. Everybody loves 3D and real-world materials. The second one, this one's a little bit harder to display, so we're going to kind of look for the idea here. I was going to open up a new drawing and take the surface to a new drawing, but it involved quite a few settings. If you're not familiar with it, it's really hard to follow. So what I want to point out here is I simply have two surfaces. I have a finished ground surface, and I have a detention pond surface. So to kind of make this a little bit easier to show, I'm going to take the finished ground surface, and I'm going to make this a no display. I'm also going to take the detention pond, and we're going to make this no display. Now, underneath that detention pond surface, I use grading objects to create a pond, and simply create the surface from those grading objects. So the goal that I wanted to point out here is the ability to paste information into a surface, and if those smaller surfaces ever get modified or updated, it will automatically update your surface. So what's unique about this, and there's several different ways to go about this. So think of the paste surface is really the key to all this, and Civil 3D just makes everything dynamic, so it's a unique workflow. So we're going to create a brand new surface. I'm going to call this finished ground with pond. Keep it simple. We'll tell it to display finished ground contours. So at this point, I just made a brand new surface. There's no information in it at this time. I can simply locate the surface that we just built, click the plus sign, and go to Edit. You can also do this in the pull down or using the ribbon. Under the Edits, I can tell it to paste the surface. I'm going to paste in the finished ground surface. So what that did, of course, is pretty much made a copy of it, right? There's another way to work with it. The second step I want to do, and you always paste the smaller surface into the larger surface. So the second step is I want to paste the detention pond into my current surface, my new surface, right? Now I have a finished ground surface that uses the roadway, the existing topo, and the pond surface, all utilizing the same contours. The best part about this is I could have done some multiple drawings so all my users would see this. I would open up the pond. I can still edit. I can modify. I can even move the pond. And all the X-reference drawings, all the drawings that utilize this surface now would only see it after I make my simple changes. So I'm going to go ahead and set this surface to the back. And now I'm going to grab the grading object. And another small type of grading objects, they're all connected to each other. So each other now. And I'm going to simply move this detention pond. As I move that detention pond, that grading object is going to automatically update. So the grading object builds that surface. That surface just got pasted into the design surface. So I moved it, and look what happened here. The other surface isn't reflecting that. But watch up here. It's going to show you that the surface is out of date and it needs updated. So I simply tell it to rebuild. It's going to automatically rebuild that surface. Again, this would automatically rebuild and update in other drawings as well. And you can see that it reflected those changes. A small note there, you'll notice that it's couldn't daylight there, but I can move it wherever we need to on the site is the idea. So very key to merge surfaces, to work with data that you still need to have an update with multiple users. You can paste one surface into the other to have it update. So that takes care of surface editing, surface materials, pasting surfaces. And we want to switch over, just jump to corridors for a little bit here, give you a little taste of it, and then we're going to finish up with roadway design as well. But we're going to just talk about corridors, jump into grading, site design, and then go back. But I just wanted to work with a corridor surface for a little bit, just because it's very easy why we're here and why we're talking about surfaces. So what I want to talk about is before we get into advanced corridor tips and tricks, I wanted to give everybody, especially the basic users out there, a chance to kind of understand corridors before we get to that. I simply have an alignment. I have a new roadway design. And very easily, you can just drag and drop assemblies into the drawing. I guess we'll go ahead and just kind of show you how these are created very quickly. Basically, there's a tool palette that we turn on, and under tool palette, locate assemblies tab, and you can just select what type of road or typical section you want to bring in. You can also build these from scratch. You can add your pavement, your curb and gutter, your sidewalks, your guardrail, daylighting. Every parameter can be dragged and dropped separately, and there's a ton of different options that we have to build this. And this is really just the beginning out of the box information that's provided. So we can also pick divided highway to get started. You can have intersection design already built into here, and we even have roundabout design. You simply select, let me pick a different one here. You simply drag and drop it into the drawing, and you can start using it. So what I want to build is a 3D model of the design following this alignment and this vertical path. To do that, I simply create a new corridor. I'm going to name the corridor. There's corridor styles. And as we build it, it just prompts us for all the information. What alignment do we want to use? What profile? So I want the finished ground design. And then what assembly do you want to use? And you can always press enter and select it by name, or you can select every object individually. The only thing we didn't tell it, if it's up above the surface or below the surface, is we want to daylight this information to match existing ground. So it simply adds that information for us. Now what I utilize is custom code set styles to display the information the way that I can be most useful to me. So as you can see, I create a code set style for daylight lines. And these daylight lines show where the cut and fill are automatically. As we get into roadway design a little bit farther, I'm going to show you different advantages to code set styles. But basically, that's how it displays the information for this model. To give you an idea, if you select your corridor under properties, it will show you what code set style you're utilizing. And I can change it here from one to the other. So if I go under settings, general, this is where your code set styles are displayed. And the entire day just on code sets. Excuse me. So what we want to look at here is corridors are built up of links, points, and shapes. And we'll talk about those in a little bit. Those points also, like your daylight lines, so every 50 feet if you sample, well there's points that every grade break basically. And you connect all those points up with what they call feature lines. So if I go over here to daylight cut, you can see I have a corridor daylight line cut, meaning I have a feature line that is red, and I have a feature line here that is red. And you can simply select these and you can change the display, how they look in plan view, how they look in model, or 3D view. And it just takes take your time, make the curve look a certain way, the edge of pavement, center lines, the shoulders, sidewalks, daylighting, anything and everything as part of your roadway design can be linked in there. So once again, you're going to have links, points, shapes, and feature lines that define and display this. Now that you have it displaying the cut and fill, you can simply go in here, grab a grip. If I move this down, you're going to notice without even utilizing the surface in here, just using the code set style, it's going to automatically rebuild this corridor if I have it set, or shows me it's out of date and I have to rebuild it. So watch the center piece here, and all that should go to cut now. Okay. So very quickly, I can kind of utilize this to give me design parameters. Now, to get volumes from this, I don't know if I want to walk you through all this because we have a lot to cover yet, so I'm going to go kind of quickly. But the idea is all of your corridors you can use to quickly build your roadway design surfaces. There's a Surfaces tab. We add the new surface. So make sure, I see a lot of users, they hit this button, they hit OK. So again, this is actually a tip because I've seen it so many times in training, and how many times users have called me for tech support why their surface isn't showing up. Make sure that you go across here. You have to make sure you just basically name the surface. Well, what information do you want? Do you want the top surface? Do you want a datum surface? So of that assembly, do you want the top lines or bottom lines, basically? We're going to use the top of the surface to build this one. As you go across here, always make sure you use top links for the top surface, bottom links for the datum surface. We'll talk about that as well as we get going a little bit. So I click OK. It automatically builds a surface for the finished ground. The problem is I don't need all of the surface in here. This isn't truly proposed. I need it to be limited to where the daylighting is. So you simply go back to the properties, under boundaries, add automatic, your daylight lines. Now it's going to automatically create that boundary, connect up all the daylight lines, and you have a true surface in here. So the top links and bottom links, well, when we take a look in assembly, links are the lines going across the top here. You can see the magenta one. Shapes are these areas of hatch, so you can get the quantities of just the area. The links, the top, meaning going across the top. I could get the volumes for every shape. I could create a surface for every level. This is the top. This is the bottom. If you're doing the top and it goes across here, you want to make sure it never jumps to any other link. So doing the top surface, always use top links. The bottom surface or datum, you always use the bottom one. You'll notice a big difference in your cross-section views if you don't do that correctly. And the last thing I'll point out here, we're going to do more with volumes, but to get you started, if you have two different surfaces, this is the quickest way to get volumes. There are other ways to get roadway volumes, but if you just use site volumes, this is the easiest way. I can go to Analysis, Volumes. It simply opens up a table, and I plug in base, existing ground, finished ground. And just like that, it automatically updates how much cut and fill, the numbers that I want to my safety net, and then as I go across, you can see there's more red than green, so it shows it is red. So everybody knows in engineering, red, you cut yourself, you're bleeding, you got to bring the dirt in, it's going to be, it's going to hurt. And of course, you can do fill with green, because I guess to remove it, you cut yourself, right? You're bleeding. The green, of course, is because you're going to have to fill and bring in a lot of dirt. It's going to cost a lot of money. So again, if I move this up and down one last time, another small tip, there's a PVI here. If you turn on DYN at the bottom, you can simply hit Tab, and then you can actually tell this at the bottom how far you want to move this up and down. So you can actually type in the elevation or the station at that point. I'm just going to drag this up. We can tell it to rebuild the corridor. It updates that corridor set. It automatically updates the surface. And what else does it do? It automatically updates our volumes, we simply go in here and tell it to recompute it. Notice the graph went from red to green. And again, this is to get it close to what we're looking for. And then we can go to a volume table to do every single cross-section that's provided. All right, so I know we're showing a lot of information. I know you can't remember everything. Take everything out of there, so to kind of sum that up. Surface editing with maximum triangle length. Surface materials, very easy to add. But as you add those, make sure you set the correct display. So we had to go in there and turn the ISO lines off in the Visual Style Manager. We can paste surfaces, and they automatically update. We can build corridor surfaces very easily. We can get volumes, and we use code set style to show the cut and fill display. And the flew around for this one is the tip is to make sure when you build top surface or bottom surface, you add the correct links while you're doing that. All right, so let's get to site design. I think this is going to be one of the favorites that everybody, one, has asked for, and it's going to be most helpful. And also the corridors will be very, very welcome as a big tip as well. Before we jump right into the grading, I just want to show one more thing with site volumes. I think everybody will find intriguing. And again, we could do all this on the same surface, but you'd have to wait for me to do several things. So we're going to make it a little bit easier, and I'm just going to open up one, again, that has two surfaces. In order to get volumes, we always compare two surfaces. So I'm going to compare the existing surface with a quick finish ground surface. And as you can see, I'm going to utilize my own tip by simply getting rid of the points, and we'll put no display to the top of it. So we have the proposed surface and the existing surface. Another way to get volumes, besides the quick way that I just did it, is you can literally build a new surface. Make sure when you build a new surface, you change this to tin volume surface. I can name this. I like naming it EG versus FG or something pond, whatever it is. I just like it in the title fight. And then inside here, what's the style going to look like? Well, for this style, to make it obvious, I'm going to have it show tin lines. It's going to build a brand new surface. It's going to use composite to do the cut and fill for us. I could add a material to this, grass or, again, sand. Base surface. Base surface is always the existing surface. I'm going to compare it to the finished ground, my cut and fill factors, and I simply built a brand new surface comparing those two together. Now, what you can do, uniquely, because this is a separate surface, is the big advantage here. I guess to look at this in 3D, you would simply see that when it built a new surface, it compared them. Anything above 0 would be the cut and fill. Right above or below is 0, because that's the elevation they used when it built the new surface. They were looking at it in 3D, but what I really wanted to get at here to show this tip is to take the ability, because you built a new surface, to show where the cut and fill areas are. So I'm going to simply go over to look at the surface properties, and you can do a surface analysis, and I'm going to compare the elevations. I simply create a new style comparing two different areas or ranges. Number one is you can see it automatically finds the lowest elevation and the highest elevation. Now, it could have been 500 elevation, 1,000 elevation, but when it builds a brand new surface, the base surface where it compares it to is always 0. So anything proposed that is above, it shows you that it's 9 feet above a fill, and the other one is minus 11 of cut. So you simply go in here and make the maximum 0 and the minimum 0. Now, anything below this is we're going to say is going to be a fill situation. So I'm going to show this as green. Anything above this, we're going to have to cut that. I'm going kind of quick here, so I'm going to make sure I got these right. But either way, make sure it applies correctly. I'm trying to think if I want to cut or fill here. But when I click OK, it's going to automatically apply that. If you don't see the color show up, make sure you create a style in here that can handle slope banding. So what I mean slope banding is you have to have in plan view turned on your elevation. So as long as this is turned on, you automatically see that. Okay, again, elevations is the cut and fill that we're going to display there. And actually, let's make sure. See elevations. So now you have slope banding I just renamed. So actually, let's do this. Elevation banding. And now when I go to plan, you can see elevations are on. So I know it's going to show the right information. And now you can see where the cut and fill is over the entire site. You can plot this map. And yes, you can even plot boundaries or just polylines if you want to. So another very useful quick tip. Also, I forgot to mention, this is a surface that I created. So we could create a report from this surface. And also under statistics, we have volumes in here as well. But this is the best way. We can also put surface ticks over the entire site, showing where the plus and minuses are. And you can see we can color the areas as well. So you pretty much create whatever you want to. You just have to know how to get the information that you want to display. So that's site volumes, very quick and easy way to do that. Again, you can also color the site by slope. So if we're doing parking lots, you could say anything under 1% or anything over 4% or criteria that we're looking for. So the next step, we're going to jump into grading. I cannot point out this enough. If you've been working with site design and you have not found the magic blue triangle, all of your questions are answered just with one simple icon. Site design is one of the most complicated things in any design because it incorporates so much different things. You're going to have maybe alignments, profiles. You might have a corridor because you have a roadway design. The curb and gutters, everything's constantly updating, spot grades, buildings. There's all sorts of things you have to tie into existing features. So this is the #1 thing to get you started with site design. We can incorporate a ton of other things as well, but this is the #1 thing to get you started. And the second best thing is you have to create a grading style. And we're going to talk about that, but this grading style will automatically label the direction, also the slope. So if it's -2%, it'll label that, and it will put spot grades over the entire site to help you design it correctly. As I open that drawing, I'm going to go ahead and double check to see if there's any questions in there or if there's anything unique that everybody would like to look at. And I'll try and add or fit that into the presentation as we go here. So we're going to open up site grading. I'm going to peek to see if there's any questions that I might have missed. So make sure you get those in there quickly if you have any. I don't see any questions yet. So again, keep those in mind if you have any. So here, to kind of give everybody an idea of what we're looking at. Simple site design. I get rid of all the labels. I make it real simple so you can see what we're trying to achieve rather than the actual design itself. Makes it a little bit easier. In here, I just have labeled, this is the roadway surface that I have to match. I have to tie into this roadway at those elevations. The only thing that I've done to advance this a little bit is I simply took a polyline. So if I got this, let's say, from an architect and it was laid out with regular lines, arc circles, they probably didn't even use O-snaps to tie it in together. So you have to make sure you clean it up. So make polylines, p-edit, join all this up, and then simply turn the polyline in to feature lines. Any type of grading you do, it has to be a feature line. Once they're feature lines, you'll notice because as soon as I select it, look at the ribbon. It got smaller. It automatically shows the information how I want to see it with the correct tab up here. And then I want to go ahead and I want to assign this some information. So let's look at the elevations quickly. When I go to the elevation editor, just to kind of show everybody what we're looking at here, you're going to notice that every single elevation is 0, right? All the grades are 0. So where do we start to grade this site? Well, of course, every site's going to be different. One of the ways that we've always done it, when I first got introduced to engineering, simply get a scale out. I know the points I got to tie in. I go down 2%. I put a spot grade, spot grade, spot grade, spot grade, spot grade, catch basin here, spot grade. And I did it on paper. Then I went over to CAD, and I created all of the points. Basically, it was DTA, and I labeled all of them, and I built a surface from that. Then I had to connect them all up with 3D polylines, built the surface, then I put the contours in there. Every time something changed, you pretty much had to go back through and redo everything. Well, this is going to be a little bit of an easier workflow for everybody. The only thing you have to do is select the feature line, find the magic blue triangle, right? They should have made that, what was the chocolate factory, the golden ticket? What was it?
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka. Find the magic blue triangle in there for Willy Wonka. So as long as you find this, you can find your site design and your direction in Civil 3D. Simply click this. You locate the beginning wherever you want to tie in. So whatever we want to start, we select that. It prompts us for an elevation. I'm going to go ahead and type this in as soon as I turn my numlock pad on. So 558673, enter. And now it says endpoint. Wherever I want to go, it shows that where I'm at with these little green triangles. So let's just start here to give you an idea. And I'm going to say that this water had to go back on the road. So I'm going to go up at 4% to make this a little bit obvious. I then simply select the feature line again, and it's going to prompt where do you want to start. So I want to start at this triangle. It remembers your elevation, allows you to edit or modify it. I don't. I simply accept it. And now where do I want to go? We're going to go a little bit quick here. So I'm going to go all the way down to here. I'm simply going to say grade. Notice the options there, -2. I'm going to go to this point. I'm going to go up to, whoops. Let's make sure I missed my elevation there. Got talking too quickly. So we'll go here. There we go. So we'll go back to the triangle again here. Where I left off was right here. I need to select that elevation. I want to go to this point. Now there's my grade. I'm going to go up 2%. So select object again, specify start point. I'm going to assume that elevation again. I'm going to go all the way down to here. We'll say a cross slope of 1%. And you get the idea. You just simply do the same process over and over again. I'm going to go down to the midpoint, -2. And I'm going to stop here. Notice there's an elevation assigned at that point. What I'm going to do is start over here now, because if I work this way and go around, there's no way it's going to match that elevation. But if I start back over here, I can start with this elevation, 558673. No, I don't remember where I got this data set, but yes, that's a very high elevation. I'm going to tell it that this is going to go up 4% as well here. I'm going to go ahead and select the feature line, same thing. I'm going to go a little bit quicker. So I'm just going to go all the way around here, I guess. We'll just say -2. We're going to go from here to here, again, -1. Again, I'm just going to go quick. So I'm going to go -2. Probably it's not going to work out even close, but the idea is just the step in the magic blue triangle. I'm going to select this point, and you'll notice I'm at 1% going down here. So now it's my option if I change that elevation, or if I put -2 here, that's going to force the grade up on the other one. I'm going to leave the -1 here so you can see that later when I label the information that everything's working out correctly. That's all there is to it, and I was able to quickly design the outside of my parking lot in this case. Curb islands can work the same way. Any part that I want to work with is the idea of the entire site design. Once I have the information displayed in here, I want to show you that you can label it, and that's the second tip here. So the first one's the blue triangle. The second one is to create a label style. Under the lines and curves annotation, select multiple segments and tell it that you want to label the lines with elevations and grades. I'm not for sure the National CAD Standards one now comes with grades. You simply go in there and add a style or text for elevation, rotate it the right direction, and it will show up. You can also do the same thing for curve information. I'm torn on this one. A lot of times I'd rather just have this say none, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But simply go over here and select any feature line. Once you do that, look at the information that's available to you. Remember, this is 2% going down, 2% going this way. And as we go around, there's the 1%. It doesn't look like I put my label style in there, but it would put -1% in there as well. It would actually tell you the direction, which way it's going, and it will label minus or positive grades. And the curves is where I'm kind of, I don't know if it's worth doing the curves or not, depending on the site, of course, and how well it's going to display it. Another useful tip, just like we do with points, this works for all your labels. Change the drawing scale so during the design process, you can go in here and you can actually see the information. Now, one thing that I talked to Autodesk about that I noticed, it does not label the curve information correctly. It will label the grades the wrong way. It doesn't always address that. So be careful with the arrow direction on the arcs. Everywhere else, the arcs do work properly. It will label everything correctly, and it will display the information. So there's the minus 4% or 4% going that way. You can see the 4% this way, the 2% as well. The curve, I think I did minus 2 from here going around this way. So you can see the curve was not correct. So again, make a note of that. But you can see 2% down. Watch the arrow, 2% down, and everything works out correctly. We have all the spot grades for every location. You can go back and edit every part of this feature line, and the elevations, everything automatically updates as you go as well, which is a huge time savings. So I'm going to turn those back on so we can display it again. And very, very helpful for all site design. You can make it different colors, different styles, whatever else you want to do. There's a lot more to site design, but I've got to leave you guys hanging with a little bit. Hopefully we can do some advanced training, or if there's we do specific training just for site design, just for corridors, whatever your project you're currently working on, if you're having troubles with it. We specialize the training for that. We will use your specific data set or your project as well to create the information and display it correctly for you. So with that in mind, let's jump back over here and take a look and sum it up. We did site volumes, right? We created a new surface display cut and fill. We used the magic grading button, the blue triangle. Hopefully everybody will remember that one. We used the label, grade distance, and spot grades for the grading style. The slew around, if anybody ever needs to daylight the parking lot, you can use grading objects, or just like corridor design, you can attach actually a bucket curve right to that feature line if you make an alignment profile from that. So a lot of people have asked, can I create a profile from a feature line? And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, I'm not going to show that today. You can go to my blog, but you can do that, and then you can attach assembly to it, and it will daylight that for you automatically. As you make changes, it would automatically update. So hopefully everybody found that very interesting. And I want to go ahead and finish up on a couple of things. There's corridors and a simple utility update, and then leave 15 minutes hopefully for questions and answers. So let's go ahead and get started in corridor design. This I think we'll find very helpful as well. To work with your corridors, how do you mark every single driveway or every single intersection? This is very tedious, and there's no simple out-of-the-box tool for this because everything is object-driven. So we have to take a look at some of the different ways to manage this data. This isn't the only way. This is just my favorite way. So one of the things I wanted to bring up before we talk about that is managing corridor data. If you're working with large data sets, a couple things to keep in mind. Do not process cross-sections in the same drawing as the corridor. It will bog it down, and it will almost make it worthless. You're just going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. If you have performance, any questions about the corridor performance that you're not happy with, let us know. We can fix it and address a lot of those issues. Don't do the cross-sections in here. The second thing I want to point out, if you have corridor design, a very small but useful tip is go into your corridor design and work with regions. Hopefully everybody's familiar with regions, but inside here, when you design corridors, you usually have multiple regions, regions for driveways, regions for intersections. Every time you use a different assembly, you have a different region. You can simply turn any region on and off here, or my favorite way of doing it is by simply selecting the corridor wherever you selected the corridor. You can use the pull down here, and it's called Isolate Region. And you can simply select. Wherever you selected, it will automatically isolate just that region. So imagine you had a 12-mile roadway design of a corridor design. It automatically turns this off. It only does calculations for the region that you're working in currently. So huge time savings when you're working on corridor design. So keep that in mind. You can always select it, go back, turn them all back on instantly. What I want to point out here as well, you notice that there was a corridor built all the way through here. Well, when I built the corridor, I also built the surface, and I used the surface to go all the way through. As long as you have a surface, then you can simply create points in the way that I like to tie in intersections for design. So if I have a main road and I have another road coming into that, secondary road coming into there, how do I match that for design? Well, in this case, I already did it, but this is a huge tip and very helpful for tying in those alignments. Simply go to create points and choose random points. Random points will allow you to place a point on a surface. To select surface, remember I built a corridor with a surface like I did earlier, so I'm going to select this. It automatically updates, so any changes I make to that vertical design in the profile will automatically update the surface. And I simply place the point at this intersection. When I place that point, make sure you have a point group that's going to display that property. So let's do this. When I create this point, it says select the surface. I'm going to select that surface once again. And it should prompt me for a description. And I guess I don't have it set to prompt for a description. So let's do this real quick. I'm going to tell all the points inside this little area to turn on. Or I got to change my point settings, right? Shoot. Hang on real quick. Here's the fun part if you don't have your settings set correctly. So let's do feature settings for points. Point names, styles. Let's see, default styles. Default name, update points. Which one am I forgetting here? Point styles. If we can do it right here, point creation. So prompt for description, yes, manual. Prompt for elevation, manual. So it should be prompting me for this. Okay, give me one more second here. Why isn't that working? So points, create points, random point. Maybe it's not grabbing the surface correctly, so I'm going to say top surface. Specify location for new point. Maybe it's just not finding this. And it's placing the point. Okay, well, the other way, without wasting everybody's time, I'm going to go here to all points. And I'm just going to turn on the point style, the basic, and a label style that says elevation only. Or let's make it spot grades. Unfortunately, I know this drawing has a ton of styles in there. And I guess it's just not creating my point. Let me try one other one here. Points, 3 points, random point. Let's surface top. All right. A very simple way to fix it is, remember when I created the corridor, I believe I isolated the corridor region, and I told you it took everything out of memory. It must be taking even the surface out of memory here, but let's see if I can update that real quick. If not, I got one more drawing we can open up and show this. It's a very, very simple tip. I really just want to make sure everybody can see this here. So let's see if that's all it was. We'll add the point one more time. I'm going to select the surface, top, place the intersection. There it is. Enter for point description. We're going to say intersection. You can say intersection marker if we wanted to, and it automatically places the point. So to make this a little bit more clear, I'm going to change this back to none. And again, that reinforces isolating the corridor for memory purposes and large data sets. That's why I did it, really. Just kidding. All right, so we got a simple point elevation label here. You could also label where the edge of pavement is to help you tie that in as well. So keep in mind this can be used for all sorts of different ideas. And what we want to do now is look for a command called profile views, project objects to profile views. You simply select this point. Remember, this road automatically changes, the vertical changes. Wherever it changes, the surface automatically updates. It's going to update this point, which in turn automatically updates this label. So this is the main road going up here. This is the side road here, or secondary road. So if I add that projection to here, select objects, select profile view. The only thing I did was create a label style for Sterling standards. You put your company name on there. It automatically adds it at the correct elevation. And you can see this is where the center line meets. I could also mark this point. As I design this road, I would start from here. I would select the next point, and I could continue all the way down through there to help design this. So again, this point, if you look at the alignment, it goes past that point. So this is the center line of the road at 272.45. And if we look here, 272.45, and now I know if that ever changes, that this would have to lock or locate that as well. You can also lock PVI points if you want to, and by locking that, linking that, if you ever edit one profile, the other profile automatically updates, which is great for intersection design. So another small tip here, we're going to do sample lines. I'm running out of time here, so we're going to keep it real simple. I'm just going to do sample lines. I'm going to do at stations. Usually I would do from corridor stations, but I only want a few of them here. I'm going to say along the alignment. By station range every 50 feet, keep it simple. And I just want to point out also that if you take a look, let's say view, tile vertically, I'm going to split this drawing into two sections here. The first one being the corridor. The second one being a volume table. And what I wanted to point out is for large corridors, if you select the corridor, and again we go back and we isolate that region to show you that it takes out of memory like it did for the point where it couldn't find that surface, what also does it for volume calculations. So if you have a volume table, cross sections, it's going to bog that information down. So what I wanted to point out was by isolating this region in here, it also only calculates the volumes. Notice how 000, so that was the first part of that corridor, and now it's only going to display the region you have on. So again, it's not calculating that table constantly. Or if you put that table in another drawing, X references back in, which should save a lot of time as well. So let's go ahead and split this back now to one. I want to also point out if you do cross-sections and you plot out cross-sections, it will keep track of the volumes and it will actually hash the areas with cut and fill green and red. And that is part of the National CAD Standards template. As long as you perform a volume calculation on here and create the cross-sections, you'll see that automatically update. So I have two more that I wanted to show. One is corridor design related, and the other one is for utilities. I think everybody will find this one helpful as well. Working with corridor design, I can't stress enough that you have to build code sets. If you haven't done this, again, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you do that. This is a roadway design that I utilize a horizontal alignment just like we did. It's using curb and gutter all the way through the entire corridor. At any time, you're going to have to break this up into multiple regions to design where the driveways or the intersections are. So what I want to point out is I'm using two assemblies. This is the first assembly that's going all the way down through there and have curb and gutter on both sides. I can't have that for driveways and intersections. The second one, I don't have the curb and gutter. So what most people do is you go up here and you select the corridor. You go to corridor properties. And you go in and you keep track of all these regions. And you have to go over here to the right and you have to say, I want to change and work with the targets for, I guess, the information. I want to change out the assembly for every one of these. It's going to be a lot of work. A much easier way to manage all this data is to simply select the corridor, using the same thing I did earlier to isolate it, is to just go in there and tell it to work with just a single region. So in this case, under the pull-down, you have region properties. You can see I even added this to my quick access toolbar at the top because I use it so often for corridor design. Region properties allows you to go in anywhere you created your regions, you select it. When it comes up, you can tell it you want to change your assembly. So I want no curb on the right side. I click OK and it automatically updates it. And you can see the curb and gutter is gone. I have a nice gutter line going through there. The tip that I want to provide today is that maybe you have 20 intersections on a large data set. Simply go to Match Properties, just like we use for everything else. Select a region, and then simply add that to any other region all the way down the corridor. Any regions that are identical, I press Enter, and it would automatically update all the rest of the regions to help me do that. So it automatically cleaned that up for us. And I'll take a look here. I don't remember if I have this set in the object viewer. Nope, sorry, I guess I don't have that set. But I was going to show you the curb and gutter materials and everything right there for you and how that was addressed. So a very useful tool. Another advanced way of doing this is using your assemblies over here. Unfortunately, I won't be able to get into it today, but I definitely suggest, and when I do a training class, I incorporate driveways and sidewalks utilizing conditional sub-assemblies, and they automatically add these regions and remove the curbs for you. Another small tip that I wanted to include today was anytime you're working with an assembly, you can simply go to MText, create MText label, right-click, you can insert a field, tell it that you want to use object category, select the object that you want to name, so in this case the assembly. Notice up here is a preview, so I want to locate the name of the object, so it's showing me the name of it. I simply click OK. I have a long name here. What you can see now, it would automatically name that assembly. If I ever change the assembly name, so let's say full section Sterling, that the name automatically updates. The only thing you have to do for fields is reopen the drawing or do a regen, and assemblies are always up to date for naming purposes. So again, a very quick way to help you organize all of them. Otherwise, when you go over to your assembly list for large data sets, you're going to notice the names are here, and the only other way to do that would be to zoom to those to locate each of those, or select and go to Properties. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the corridor tips as well. And again, just to point out here some of the biggest things with matching regions. But my flew around, and most important that I like to point out is these conditional sub-assemblies for driveways and sidewalks. We did the centerline matching, so we create a point by elevation. It's called random point. And then we did object projection to locate that point in the profile view, and that's completely dynamic as you go. To manage large corridor sets, we can isolate regions. Cross-sections go in separate drawings. We can do assembly labels, and make sure you use code set styles to display the information correctly. The last tip I want to show is simply one for utilities, and this one is a little pet peeve that I've noticed since at least 2007. And every training and every tech tip, or I guess tech question that I get is how do you fix this, or how do you resolve this, how do you work around this? I think that's how I came up with Workarounds in the very beginning. The first thing I do is I have to have my storm sewer here labeled. I'm going to select the pipe network. I guess I might as well do the plan view and the profile view while I'm here. And the label type that I use is labeling the structure information above the structure. Anybody that tries to do this in Civil 3D, it's really not a big deal. You can drag them straight up in the air. The problem is as soon as you drag them to the left or right, they automatically go to the center of the structure. This has been on the wish list item for years. They've never been addressed. And what they did, I believe, in 2010, is came out with a way to, I guess, kind of lock where your labels are located. So simply drag that up with Ortho on, right-click, I toggle the label, so I pin the label. Now you can take this label, and when you drag this out, make sure Ortho's off. Well, you can drag the label wherever you want to, and now it automatically will update as I move the label. Normally, there we go. Oops, making a mess of this one, huh? There we go. And now it allows you to keep the top of the structure and pull that up. So let's try that again real quick. Simply select it. When you drag this up, make sure Ortho is on so it doesn't go off to the left or right during that stage. Make sure you place it first. And then right-click, toggle label pin. And then a little easier way would be to actually take this little plus sign, move this to about where you want to place it first. Okay, so wherever you want to place that label, and then simply move where the toggle is to meet that one. It would be a little more organized way or easier way to get expected results every time. But a very easy solution to something that has kind of been coming up very, very commonly, something we do all the time. So hopefully everybody enjoyed that one as well. So that kind of concludes a lot of tips and tricks. Hopefully everybody took advantage of part 4 here and really learned something either on the basic level, intermediate, and some advanced. I have a lot more on the advanced side. If you're interested, let me know and be happy to share those with you. Dave's going to talk about Lynn Allen in a little bit. We also have a 1-hour breakout session. I plan on showing some very advanced tips there as well as part of the infrastructure design suite. So I hope to see everybody there as well. And I just want to thank everybody for their time. Please keep in mind, if you're on subscription, a big tip, make sure you get all the software that's available to you. This is 2012 software that is free for download that you can incorporate your Civil 3D version right now. One of those that I definitely highly suggest is the Bid Express for quantity takeoffs. It automatically computes the information for you, whether you're doing roadway design or utility design. And if you're doing custom roadway design, you can get Subassembly Composer, and that allows you to really get creative with your assemblies and information. And of course, there's a new volume dashboard, which is helpful too.
All right. Well, thanks. Thank you, Chad. And again, thanks everybody for coming this morning. Just real quick, as I mentioned at the beginning, I wanted to touch on again on our support solutions. 1 year free gold support with each seat of software purchase, or again, that's with a subscription renewal or an upgrade. That's with our certified Autodesk professionals, phone, email support, or what we call virtual on-site support when we actually take over your machine with your permission and see what's going on, so a little bit more hands-on approach. Also wanted to talk about a huge event for us here at Sterling Systems. Lynn Allen, actually an Autodesk evangelist for Autodesk, she speaks to about 30,000 people a year. She's got 3 or 4 books out now on Autodesk and AutoCAD and the various products, as well as she also writes for Catalyst Magazine. So she's been with Autodesk for several years. If you have not had a chance to see Lynn speak, I've actually seen a few of them, and she's phenomenal. Most of the time, our Autodesk University class is pretty much full for the last 10, 15 years or so. We actually have Lynn for an event here in Arizona where she will be doing some tips and tricks as well as the future of design with Autodesk products. It's a free event. We do have limited seating and it will fill up, so what we're asking is if you or your colleagues are planning on attending this, please register early. Again, the date on that is February 16th. It's an afternoon event. We will have a happy hour afterwards, and so kind of a little bit of a networking event as well, and 2 breakout sessions, one of them on Revit and one of them on Civil 3D. So it'll be an awesome event. We hope to see everybody there. Real quick, too, this before I wrap it up, I also wanted to mention a promotion that we put in place last week or so. It's 0% financing on all subscription renewals, all AutoCAD products, and basically what's nice about this is there's no size limit. So if you have 1, 2 seats or 100 seats, it really doesn't matter. 0% financing on 12, 24, or 36 months. So it's a pretty cool promotion. And with that, again, I appreciate it. Here's our information should you have any additional questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Chad as a final wrap-up, and thank you again. And please remember the evaluations. They'll probably get out either later this afternoon or tomorrow. Please take a second and fill those out. Appreciate it.
All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us live because we are going to record, or we did record these, so we are putting these on our site shortly. But for joining us live, and the other advantage, of course, if anything happens that doesn't get recorded, you can miss it. But 2 advantages for joining us live. The first one is a couple questions here. We're going to give away 2 $5 Starbucks gift cards. I'm going to make them real easy, so anybody that pays attention should remember these questions. So whoever gets on the keyboard the quickest wins. If you've already won one, I'm going to have to let somebody else win one if you won part 1 or one of the other sessions that we did this. The first one is, what is the magic icon to do grading? And whoever shows up in the question answers first wins. $5 gift card. Anybody remember the magic button? All right, I don't know if everybody jumped off there. You got it on mute. You got to type it into the chat window. I'm sorry if I didn't point that out. You have to type it in the chat window. What was the magic button in order to get that? All right, we got one. It was the blue triangle. So appreciate it. Ron, shoot your email over and I'll get that to you. And to anybody else out there, the last question was, what material did I add to make fun of Dave Press golf games? So the first one to type that in as well will win a Starbucks gift card. And Mary, you got it. A couple other ones came in. Mary, unfortunately, I didn't mean grass. I was making fun of Dave for sand. So sorry about that one. Nicole, you're gonna get the gift card, and I'll shoot that out to you. Mary, just for trying, shoot me your email address as well, and I'll send you one as well. So Nicole, please shoot me your email if you guys don't mind, and I will get the gift cards out to you today or tomorrow. I'm just going to pick them up. And I want to thank everybody again for joining us. Please feel free to email Dave Press or I for more topics. We're going to do this in the future as well. I think subscription's a great idea to go over some of the software that's available. Again, the Lynn Allen event, I hope to see everybody there, and look forward to talking to everybody soon. Again, please forward your emails for the gift cards. Thanks again, everybody.
Hey, Mary, this is Dave. I want to thank you for saying I hit the shots in the grass, because I do hit them in the grass.
There you go.
Thanks for the confidence.
Your mom named Mary.
Thank you, Mom.
Thanks again.